It's great to be back and back doing what we love to do as coaches, and that is develop our players and begin another season here at Notre Dame. You know, the football program here at Notre Dame has such a great history and tradition, and you know, anytime that we get an opportunity to you know, begin another season, I think are so energized as a staff with the expectations and the opportunities, and that's what makes being at Notre Dame so great. There's such great expectations. They are high every year. We recognize that. There's such great tradition, and we appreciate that. And that's what I think energizes all of our players and coaches and everybody as we embark on another season here at Notre Dame. I'll begin with just an overview of our off season, and as you know, we began that off season with a bit of a change from what had been a traditional you know, June, where you know, most teams were focusing on their camps. We also got an opportunity this year to spend a little bit of time with our players, and I think that proved to be very beneficial. And I think I was at the time hopeful that that would be the case if we were able to continue to train in the manner that we had trained in the past. In other words, that we wouldn't cut short our training in lieu of having workouts in June with our team. And after talking to Paul Longo, our strength coach, and his staff, they had a great July and felt like they were able to accomplish all of the strength and conditioning goals that we had accomplished in the past, and even more so. So the combination of being able to work with our players in June, coupled with the strength and conditioning that is always part of your off season, you know, we believe that this was the best off season that we've had since we've been here at Notre Dame. So we look to, you know, carry that momentum into our reporting day on Sunday, and we hope to see the benefits as we go into our first week of acclimatization, where, you know, we've really now laid down our offense and defensive structure a couple of times, and we hope to see that really show itself in the first week of camp. So I want to kind of begin with that, because I really think that we're going to be able to see some great gains in our first week. You only get that one practice, so you want that practice to really count. And I think the work we did in June, coupled with the strength and conditioning gains that we believe that we saw with our football team, is going to benefit us as we go into that first week as we prepare for our opener against Rice. You know, during that time also, you're also looking to build leadership within the ranks. That has been an ongoing process that will continue to work itself into our team as we go through. I don't look to name any captains right away, but we are seeing players emerge in leadership roles, and a lot of those guys have experience, and a lot of those guys are our best players, and that's always the best form of leadership within your ranks. We had guys that have made great gains in the summer, not only in strength and weight training, but from coming back from injury as well. I know that a lot has been asked about Jarrett Grace. You know, we think that he's in a great position now, where, you know, he's going to be close now to being ready when the season starts. You know, we think he's, you know, he's in a position now where he's running, and it's going to be, for us, a wait and see process, but he is so much closer than we ever thought he could be, you know, as we go into the month of August. And I know that he's been somebody that a lot of people, you know, we're certainly excited about him. I know that it's out there. I think it leaked out there about Mike Hireman. Mike had another hernia setback, so he's had surgery. So Mike will be lost for about another month before he's ready to go. And so he won't be with us early on. And we'll have to count on some depth issues there with the freshman and Tyler Luatua, who had a great summer for us. Really excited about how he's really settled in here. Again, coming from the West Coast, you know, you're always worried about, you know, that transition, and we really feel good about what he's been able to do in a very short period of time. Unfortunately, Tony Springman has suffered a setback, and he is not going to be able to play football for us. He has come back from his knee injury, but he has had a lingering back issue, and that is not going to allow him to continue to play football. So he will be a medical situation for us, and so Tony will no longer be playing football. He'll still stay involved in the program. You know, Tony has done a great job of mentoring a lot of our younger players in the program. He's shown great leadership, great resolve in coming back from his knee injury, and he'll stay connected with our program and still be part of us even as we go down, you know, to the Culver Academies. You know, I think what I was most pleased with in terms of the work ethic of some of our players, in particular, if you take a guy like Nick Martin, who just kind of set the bar in terms of coming back from a really, you know, a tough injury, a knee injury. And now he is full go. The way he's worked, Ben Council, the way both of those guys have set a high bar in coming back from knee injuries and now being fully capable to do everything in our program. You know, certainly we'll have to monitor their volume, but for them to come back with the manner that they have worked has been outstanding, and certainly Rob Hunt and the way he's handled the rehab of our players, and Paul Longo and his staff, and the way they integrate together, you know, it's largely due to their ability to collaborate and get those guys back. But both of those guys I wanted to single out in particular, Ben Council and Nick Martin, the way they've come back from knee injuries in a short period of time to be ready to go. Those were the guys that I kind of wanted to get out in particular, give you an overview of the June going in through July, leading up to where we are right now. You know, we've been in as a staff. We're, you know, preparing, obviously. Our installation, obviously, is complete. All of our scripting is done. Now it's just a matter of getting our guys to report and heading down to Culver Academies. Going there, we also allows us a great environment to do a lot of team building with our guys. There are many opportunities there on that campus where, first of all, from a facility standpoint, we really like the geography that's there. We have 2 adjacent fields, one a field turf and one a brand new field that's been installed there. So we like the facilities, the geography, as well as things that we can do with our team there that is going to allow us to continue to grow with our team. So all those things said, that's I think what makes it so exciting for us as we enter the 14th season with an incredibly difficult and demanding schedule. You know, our players were in class all summer. All of our players are in good standing with the university, and now we move forward towards what's going to be an exciting 2014. So with that, I'll open up to questions. I answered all your questions. I was trying to be comprehensive.
Hey, Brian. I'm curious, with Springman out, what does the nose guard situation look like behind Jerron Jones?
Well, as you know, we got a chance to evaluate our freshmen, and we got a chance to see Daniel Cage and Pete Mokwa, and really believe with him, with those two guys and Jerron Jones, that we've got some pretty good depth at that position. Justin Utupo, I'm not saying he's going to play the nose, but, he's a guy that's up to 290 pounds now. We think we've got some depth at that position, and we've got some size. We've got, right now, if you count Jones, Mukwa, and Cage, you've got three guys that are over 300 pounds. And I think what in my conversations with Coach Longo, in particular with Cage and Mokwa, their volume is ahead of any of the freshmen that we have had at that position since we've come here. Their ability to go in and take reps immediately because they're so strong as well. Both of them physically are able to compete right away. So we'll have to see what their football ability brings, but from a work volume standpoint and from a strength standpoint, and obviously their size, we feel pretty good at that position right now.
If you were to have an injury there, or if they weren't as far along football-wise as you thought, does it curtail how much 34 you can play?
I don't think so. I think there's a great deal of flexibility that we have still with some other players that have gotten a lot stronger and really, have the size now that can slide inside. So I think we've gotten from this summer workouts a lot of the flexibility that's going to allow us to be in both 3 down and 4 down. Jacob Matuska is up to over 290 pounds. I mean, so, we've got big body guys now that give us a lot more flexibility within our front.
What can you tell us about Niall Sykes' departure?
All I can tell you particularly is that, when we're talking about players in our program, it's got to be the right fit, and it just wasn't the right fit, and he's now in a situation where he feels like it's a great fit for him, and we wish him the best. He's a good kid. There's nothing that he did in our football program that put him in a bad situation with me personally. I gave him a great recommendation, and we wish him the best at, I believe he's at Indiana.
You've mentioned a few of the freshmen here and there. I know that they haven't had pads on yet, but are there some guys that jumped out at you this summer where you said, okay, he's got a chance to help us and we got a need there?
Well, I just mentioned 2 300-pounders, right? The 2 big guys inside. I think, defensively, there's probably, a handful of players that are going to get a chance. Nick Watkins was very impressive. He's a 6 foot, almost a 6'1" long, smooth athlete that's going to get a chance to compete. I think there's a couple of linebackers. Niles Morgan is a young man that continues to impress. Johnny Williams, his athletic ability really stood out, to us. Jonathan Bonner, 35-inch vertical at his size. I mean, some of the physical traits really jump out. Now, again, as you said, I will, couch that with, we got to put the pads on and they've got to pick up the system. But there's a lot of guys in this freshman class, especially on the defensive side of the ball, that have the physical traits necessary to come in and compete, with the right numbers. Vertical jump, strength, squat, bench, and size, and we'll just have to see how that plays out.
What do you want the quarterback dynamic to be in August as you open camp? Do you want some separation? Do you want there to be pushing? Do you want to name somebody and get those roles adjusted? How do you want that to play out?
I think in an ideal world, I think every coach would want one quarterback that has clearly demonstrated a consistency, great leadership, and the ability to take you to a championship. And so if that guy shows himself, I'm ready to name him the quarterback on that day. So I'm not playing a game where, we're trying to create artificial competition within the ranks. I think we still have competition for that particular role to show itself. I think it can show itself. And when it does, we'll be ready to make that declaration. It just hasn't shown itself yet, but I'm confident that it will. And when it does, we'll be ready to make that call.
Brian, curious of the summer workouts. You said they went well. Does that change the way that you approach August camp at all versus the way you've done it for the past 2 decades or so now?
Well, we've handled the practice structure in terms of the way we are practicing very similar, but we're ready to move quickly and get into a higher level of competition with ones and twos if we need to. So we are starting as if we had no OTA, and we'll see where that takes us. We're prepared to really accelerate the process. But, we're going through a similar installation period as if we did not have the June, and I'm okay with that because I think what we're going to see is better retention. I think we're going to see better practices. I think we're going to be more crisp. I think we're going to be ahead of where we were in the past.
I think in past off seasons you've talked about self-scouting yourself and coaching and the way you approach things. Mm-hmm. Have you done that this summer and made any kind of changes or ideas you want to change up?
Oh, certainly. Have looked at a lot of things in special teams. We've looked at, I think we've done more self-scouting and analysis in special teams and on the offensive side of the ball than I have done in a number of years. So we're pretty cognizant of all of the things necessary for us to be balanced, for us to improve in the areas that we need the improvement in. We know where we are. We know who we were last year, and we know what we want to be better at moving into 2014.
What were you able to see from DeVaris Daniels this summer, and how close to being caught up is he after missing the spring?
Well, he's definitely physically a stronger football player. He's put on strength and muscle. I saw a more mature Daniels in the way he handles him. I saw some leadership from him, leading the group. I think with Daniels, it's what I probably have said from day one. We want to see that every day, and we're seeing some really, really good signs of that. Now it's a matter of taking that to a championship level means doing it every single day. So I think we saw some really good signs. We want to be able to see that every day.
Then a little bit off topic, Johnny Lujak had surgery earlier this week. Have you gotten a chance to know him much in your time here? I
have. I've gotten a chance to spend some time with him, and it's amazing that I talked about this at the outset in terms of the tradition of Notre Dame. When you're around a living legend in my mind, an icon like that, the thing that struck me about Johnny more than anything else is his humor. No matter what the situation, the humor. And his family passed on a quip that he made just the other day, which I'm not going to pass on with anybody here. While he was in the hospital, he still has that kind of wit and humor. For somebody that is, in my eyes, just such an icon to have that down-to-earth quality, and he's taken this very, difficult health situation, and he's handling it with humor. So it tells me so much about the person. No matter what the situation, he's always handled it so well. So, our thoughts and prayers are with him. He seems to be doing pretty good right now, and we hope to see him back on campus real soon.
Right up to your right, just where does Everett's knowledge base, where does it compare to now working with him in the summer to when he first came back to school in January?
I think it's a ongoing process of really not knowing the playbook, but understanding the move before the move is made, and so really understanding me and what I'm thinking before that play is made or that call is made. And so that's what we're trying to really get to. He knows everything in the playbook. He knows what 62 protection is. He knows what a sluggo is. Now why are we running it? So it's the why of the playbook. Why are we doing this? What's the next call here when you see this coverage? And so that's where we are in this process. Why? And when you get there, you want the quarterback now to be one step ahead of you. Coach, we need to be doing this. And we're not there yet, but we're moving in that direction.
Kind of an early question on the Sam linebacker, just the strong side outside. Yeah. Is Ben a guy who could possibly slide over there? I know he's been a weak side guy most of his career. Is he a guy you might view in that role?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, personnel is going to drive, the offensive personnel is going to drive a lot of the defensive personnel. And so we think Ben has a unique quality in that, he played in space at that position. He can play outside, and he's 250-something pounds. And he's strong, and he's got, very violent hands. When he gets his hands on you, I mean, he can really control the line of scrimmage. So, he can play over a tight end. He can play in some space. Him and getting Jared Grace healthy, those are two really big pieces for us because we can get really big, and get really physical at the linebacker position with those guys on the field. And then we can match up with some smaller guys as well that are more, safety types that can play down. So those two guys are really important to us. And Ben Council is we can't underestimate how important he is to the overall picture of our defense.
And just last one, Kavari Russell, do you feel he's ready to take on this role, maybe playing a little more man coverage, being a little more aggressive as a cornerback, and taking those kind of chances?
Yeah, and I think you minimize your chances when you have a guy like a Russell, right? So, it's going to – I think he has taken on this role as one of a challenge where he wants to be that Revis, he wants to be that, Peterson. He wants to be seen as that kind of player. And he knows he's got some work to do. I'm not comparing him to that. I'm saying at the highest level in college, right? So he wants to be that kind of player. He wants to be the very best at his position. So he's driven to be that player. He's not there yet. So that's his focus. So we're pretty excited about having a player that has that kind of passion and desire to want to be a great player, and he's moving in that direction.
Brian, up center. In terms of knowing the playbook and the why, how far is Malik from that?
He is he's pretty good at the why. He understands the concepts. I think once in a while he'll revert back to some freshman mistakes, and we just have to clean up some of the some of the hiccups, I guess, that he'll have. Because he's got a great understanding of what we're doing, and he can do some really good things for us. And I think for him sometimes, we just have to keep him focused on a day-to-day basis and, stay within the system. I really like his progression. He's been great this summer. and just don't revert back to some of the mistakes that he's made in the past. If he does that, stays away from that, he's going to be ready to compete at a high level as well.
I think this is the third time in 4 years where you've had a quarterback competition in camp, but this is probably the most, I guess, like quarterbacks
Yes.
that have been battling. Does that change the evaluation?
Well, I'll give you how it changes. I'm scripting offense for the first time in really since I've been here. So scripting plays, for example, where this is the first time that we don't have to have two scripts for two quarterbacks. They're running the same plays. And that is a huge advantage in terms of, building, that consistency throughout the ranks for everybody, from the offensive line to the receivers to the quarterback. So it's a huge advantage that we can run the same offense with both guys. It trickles down to everybody within the offensive structure that we can run the same offense and execute the same way with both quarterbacks.
I think in the past you've sort of made the call, or the player has, prompted you to make the call about 10 days out from the opener. Is that sort of the timeline that you feel like is comfortable for you?
The 10 days out probably was more of a deadline, so we built some continuity with the first group, and everybody knew who the starter was. That's probably the time where you want to get it done by then. I'll make the call when it's clear, and I think that's where it's probably the most prudent time if you know it. If you know who the guy's going to be, you probably don't want to wait. If you know who it is, Pete, you probably want to make it right around then. If you don't know, you don't know, and you just keep going until you find out. If I know sooner, we'll go sooner.
Just curious, Cody Riggs.
Yes.
Slight, when you're hands-on with him somewhat over the summer, what'd you see from him? What do you think he can give you this fall in terms of experience, but also maybe some position flexibility?
Well, first of all, he fits in very well here. He's a Notre Dame man, handles himself with great maturity, handles his business very well. He's in a very competitive academic program here at Notre Dame. He's on time, respected by his teammates, and he's going to bring a lot of veteran experience. This guy's played a lot of football in the SEC, so he's a great add to our football team. And he was probably a little bit out of shape when he got here. We've rounded him into very good shape, and he's appreciated that. And it's been a little bit different for him. It's a bit of a change, from what he's been used to, working in more of a team atmosphere here. Not that they weren't a team where he was from, but we do a lot more with team weight training. And so that's been very good because it's really gotten him a chance to know the team in its entirety. So he's fit in very well.
Do you think he could be a safety for you, or is he strictly a corner?
Well, he's got the ability to play corner. He could play, in the nickel position. I don't know that, we've really sat down and said, hey, here's a safety. He did play safety at Florida, so obviously he's got some experience at that position. But I think, we're starting at the corner position, nickel position. That's where we'd like to start.
Just sort of your general thoughts on your offensive line, and maybe specifically Elmer, where he fits in, and then also a freshman in Nelson. He's at 325 on that roster.
Yeah.
Early thoughts on him?
Well, obviously on the offensive line, getting Christian Lombard back healthy has been really good. His last 2 weeks here, from the accounts that I've gotten from Coach Longo, were outstanding. He's healthy, he's moving well, he's strong. That's a huge piece for us. So now with Lombard, being healthy, a starter returns. Nick Martin being healthy, a starter returns. Elmer, a starter returns. Stanley, a starter returns. So, you're really talking about 4 starters returning on the offensive line. That's a good place to be. Now we got to figure out, who that 5th player is. And you know how I feel about, and I've made it pretty clear, Matt Hegarty has been outstanding. Connor Hanratty is a tough kid that we really value a lot in the way he competes. And Mike McGlinchey is physically as gifted as, any player that we have. So we really think we've got three, outstanding candidates to compete in that position. And guys coming along, too. And you mentioned Quentin Nelson, who, physically is, a very gifted player. So we really think that group as a whole sets a standard in our program. The way they compete together, the way they work out. Last year, there were no peers to that group as a whole. Now, there are some peers. Our defensive line is a 180 in terms of where they are this year compared to last year as how they work as a group. They have been outstanding, and that's led by Sheldon Day. I mean, Sheldon Day has been a great leader for us with that group. So that group as a whole, we feel really good about the offensive line.
Brian, a minute ago, right here, you mentioned that you took a look at what you were last year and know where you want to be better. What is the priority now? What is the focus on getting better at?
Well, I think you come into every year and you learn about your football team, and you know that, look, we're going to have a new quarterback. We're going to play a lot of new players on the defensive side of the ball, clearly, and we have to make up for the loss of production in the wide receiving core. So immediately, the first things are to try to gain that continuity on the offensive side of the ball and finding that production. Defensively, it's been what we've talked about, is settling into a system with a new defensive coordinator and getting those players in a position where they can make up for the loss of a lot of good players that have graduated. So, and everybody's dealing with the same thing, right? Everybody has lost really good players. Alabama loses them every year. LSU loses them every year. Florida State loses them. So I think we're all in the same position, and that is we come into the season, we got a lot of young players that we think are very talented. Now we put them in a position and we look for production from these players immediately.
And 4 straight winning seasons. It's been a while since Notre Dame had that. So you gain some consistency, but as you said, expectations here are higher. What's going to take to take the next step and be more consistently an elite team? What do you think has to happen for that to occur?
Well, we went undefeated in that run. So you throw an undefeated season in there. You don't want to have an undefeated season and then have just winning seasons. You want to be part of the national conversation. And, at Notre Dame, that's where we want to be. Now, so the structure is different. It's how do you get into the playoffs? So for us, every year now, it'll be we want to put ourselves in a position to get into the national playoffs. And that really will be the mark for every team. The 120, is there 126? There's a lot more teams now. That's the mark for us. How many are there? 128. So there's 128 teams. We want to be one of those teams that are considered, that's how we'll mark our program every year, to compete for a playoff position. There's only 4 of them, and there's 128. We got to have a serious shot at getting one of those 4.
Brandon, in the middle. Considering the talent, the personnel that you've lost along the defensive front 7, not only from last year but the year before, does scheme take on a greater importance? In other words, you can't just physically line up and pound people. Bob Diaco was more of a fundamentally sound coach. Is scheme more important under Brian Van Gorder?
Well, I think we certainly are going to find ourselves in a position where we're going to have to move more players onto the field. You're going to see us playing multiple players, utilizing their strengths. And one of the things that Brian brings to the table is a great deal of experience in utilizing the strengths of those singular players, those individual players. So if that's considered scheming, then that's what it is. I think what Brian does really well is that he looks at a particular player and says, I'm going to put him in a position where he can use his specific ability, and we'll. And this is where I've always been, and this is where Brian and I have always been on the same page. It's always been, for me, offensively, it's always been about the player, not the play. And it's the same thing for Brian. It's always about the player, not the front. You know, so he's always going to be about getting the players in a position where they can help play great defense. And so I think you'll see a lot of that as we move into the season.
You coached with him a while back.
Yeah.
And now you've had a chance to spend a few months with him. What else have you learned about it? Obviously, he understands the game a lot better than he did way back when, but what else have you learned about him and coaching with him and working with him?
His attention to detail, his passion, his ability to really communicate well with the staff, and allow the coaches to coach. You know, he's not a he's not a micromanager. He has all the traits of successful coaches, and the ones that I've always been around are passionate about what they do, communicate effectively, pay attention to detail, and let their coaches coach. Let the staff go out and coach. And I think he's done a great job, and he's built relationships with the players in a very short period of time where they believe in him. And I think that's important, especially when you're talking about, you know, bringing in a new, you know, a lot of defensive terminology that is new for some of the guys.
With regard to Culver, why not last year? I know they didn't have their artificial surface in yet, but why not Culver last year?
We needed two fields. So one field was not, they only had one field. So the addition of the second field, Tim, was really the difference. So when that investment was made on a second field, and it was the positioning of the field, I didn't want to have to go too far. I wanted the geography to be just right, where, you know, we could have the defense on one field and the offense, and I could switch on a horn and be able to get together. So geography was absolutely crucial to this move.
And you mentioned Jonathan Bonner. He's listed at 269. He's also listed at linebacker. Where do you anticipate him playing?
I don't know. It's going to be fun to watch him, though, because his numbers, his physical prowess really stood out in our testing, and he's had a really good summer. He's a big kid, athletic, strong. You know, we're gonna find out in the first week, you know, where that kind of shakes out.
Where would you anticipate him starting out?
He's 270 pounds, so I think you can kind of figure out that. Yeah, he's probably going to put a hand down, my guess. But we'll see what happens.
Thank you.
Brian, here to your right. You've mentioned a couple of times that as the quarterback situation goes, you're looking for separation, and so you can make the call as to whom it might be. As far as the running backs are concerned, with Folston, Bryant, and McDaniels, do you look for the same thing to play itself out, or do you go in and say, we've got a three-headed monster here, and it's not as important for separation there?
Well, I would say that position is different than the quarterback position. You know, you're looking for natural leadership because of, you know, what that quarterback position does, right? So I'm not as concerned about that one, you know, coming in and announcing who the starting running back is. If it happens, that'd be fine. So I think with that, there's enough room for all three of those guys to play substantial roles in our offense, and I would expect that all three of them do.
Brian in the middle. Not to overanalyze the quarterback position, but you talk about what each guy does.
Well, you'd be the only one not to.
I know, right? I got to fit the bill. When you talk about what you're looking for, and one of the things you said was you want a guy who can lead you to a championship, and you've got a quarterback that took you to a title game, and another who's never taken a snap. And realistically, what could Malik do this camp that would impress you so much that would put him on the field against?
Well,
Rivers?
I would argue that Everett rode the bus to the championship. I think Malik has the ability to play winning football for us. and I want him to play championship football for us. And so there's a level that he has to get to, and it's kind of what I alluded to before, is that, there's a couple of things there. First of all, I've got to continue to give him the confidence that he can be the starter, and he's got to see that. Secondly, he can't make, freshman mistakes. And continue to develop. If he does that, I think he can grow from a winning quarterback to a championship quarterback. Everett's got to continue on that same, ascent, and that's why it's a pretty good situation to be in, quite frankly. I'm not here complaining about our quarterback position. I'm actually pretty excited that I've got two guys that are moving in a very good direction, and I feel really good about actually both Kaiser and Van Gorder. Both of those kids had very good OTAs, and so I feel pretty good about where we are at this point.
Your thoughts kind of broadly on the schedule this year you face?
Well, certainly I would have liked to have certainly found a little bit of a breather in that middle area. The schedule is certainly difficult every year at Notre Dame. That's what it is. But we do have a couple of byes in there, which I think is going to be very helpful to our football team. We got to get off to a great start. Rice is a football team that is not going to back down. They had great success last year. They went on the road against A&M and had them on the ropes. So we got to get off to a great start. And then, of course, Michigan, Purdue, very difficult start to our schedule. And that's the difference. The one clear difference here at Notre Dame is that you're jumping in right away. And we got to get off to a great start.
Since you've been here, you've had a nice safety net in Zach Martin. He's just been there every single week. And you've talked some about your offensive line. Is there one player in particular that can replace what he does, not just on the field, but off the field? Or is it kind of the whole group, as you alluded to a little bit?
Yeah, I think the strength of the offensive line is in the pack, right? It's the group. But the one guy is the guy with the same last name. Hasn't gone very far. Nick Martin is the leader of that group. It's pretty clear. I know we got great leadership from Christian, but that's Nick Martin that's really driving that group, and a lot of that has been passed on from Zach. That's why I consider him one of the great captains of my career, because he passed on so much of that, and they're just following from a lot of what he passed on.
Coach, can you just talk about what you want out of your guys Monday at 11 a.m.? What do you expect to see from them?
Yeah, I want retention. Retention from the spring, retention from our OTAs, and I want to be able to see that show itself in the very first day that we step out on the field. I think the one thing that we demand from our players is that when we're in those 2 hours of practice, that we start fast, that there's an attention to detail, that there's great effort and enthusiasm, and that we finish strong. And we call that 4 quarters of winning. So that retention needs to be there. If we come out and we have forgotten all the things that we have been working on since January, I would be very disappointed. I don't expect that to happen, because we're going into year 5, and we've been very consistent with the message. I expect to have a great day the first day.
And then you touched on the second field at Culver Academies, but can you just talk about it as a whole, Culver Academies, and why that was the right fit for you guys?
Well, and again, I mentioned geography. I like the fact that it's just a little bit under an hour. I like that proximity. The medical facility on campus, laundry facilities, the ability to not have to take things off site. We're able to use our entire EXO system there. We were a bit challenged with our video. We had to do duplicating of our video, which required us to wait after practices for video. We'll have capabilities to have our mainframe. So there's just a lot of things that make it an easier camp environment to do the things that we can do here. Shiloh is a great opportunity for us. This presents us an even better opportunity. And secondly, you only get one practice. So there's 22 hours left in the day. And so we feel like that site provides us a lot of opportunities to do some team building with our players.
And finally, for me, the last couple of years, defense has obviously been the strength of this team. Do you feel the offense is now your strength and what you'll rely on in 2014?
I really hope that all three phases are able to come together this year and complement. I mean, I want to be able to say that this football team can complement the defense and can complement the offense, and the special teams can complement. I don't want it to be, we got there because of our defense or we got there because of our offense. Going into this season, I think if all three phases can come together as one, we've got a chance to be a really good football team.
On your left. During the spring, you had said that you were cautiously optimistic about Ishaq Williams. Have you seen him continue to make strides, and do you think the lights come on for him?
Well, he's a senior. He's done everything we've asked him to do. He's 270 pounds. He's strong. It's time. It's time for him to go play. So, he's now got that opportunity to, finish his career in a great way. So time will tell. His attitude's been great. Now he'll get an opportunity to go out there and improve it this year.
Coach, just as a follow-up on what Angelo was talking about, we talked about it a little in the spring, but last 2 years, you've won so many games, 14-10, 17-13, 13-6. And the popular perception this year is that you have to win a lot of shootouts this year, including maybe at Tallahassee or other places. I mean, do you see more of an onus on the offense having to take a greater load than it has?
I think we need to score more points. I agree. And I think I've been on the record as saying that the offense has to definitely score more points. We looked at teams that competed for a national championship last year, had to score a lot of points to get there. And we're going to have to do that here at Notre Dame. There are going to be some games, and, we had our games last year where we put some points on the board against an Arizona State that, got us a win. Navy got us a win where we had to score some more points. But I think going into this season, we're going to have to be more productive offensively than we have been.
The popular cliche always is defense wins championships, and it obviously took you a long way in 2012. But you look at the scores last year in the BCS games, 40-35, 34-31, 52-42. Do you feel that maybe football has evolved to a point where the offense is having a greater advantage?
Well, I mean, we could talk all day on this. There's a number of different things, and if you ask some coaches, they believe that the rules need to be adjusted to handle that end of it. I'm not even going to get into that, but the offenses and the want and desire to play on offense and what that can do for you. You got kids that want to be on the offensive side of the ball, some of the great athletes in the country. And so you have a proliferation of talent on the offensive side of the ball. You have quarterbacks that are mobile, that keep plays alive. You don't have traditional pocket quarterbacks that just drop back and you know where they're going to be. These guys are making plays that are hard to defend. You may defend them for 3 seconds, and then, they're making plays. The quarterback is also running today, and that has changed the complexion of the game. So those multi-dimension quarterbacks, the proliferation of talent on offense, and kids wanting to play on the offensive side of the ball, the game itself is played so fast. Defense not being able to huddle and get their communication system. I could go on and on and on. That is obviously all part of the rise in scoring, and we got to be part of that.
Do you believe now that you have things in place where you have to perhaps force the action a little bit more with up-tempo, with the way the game is?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're better suited to do it than any time since I've been here. There's no question about that. I mean, the quarterback, both the quarterbacks are quarterbacks that fit the kind of style that I like to run. And so we're better suited to do that at any other time. So there's no excuses. I mean, these are the kind of quarterbacks that are able to run the kind of offense that allows you to go fast, and you don't have to change plays on the line of scrimmage. I don't have to block that guy because I don't think you can tackle that quarterback. So, you know, that changes the way you play. And so, yeah, I think we can play faster.
And one other constant in your 4 years besides Zach Martin lining up at left tackle, there's always been stellar tight end play there. With Ben Koyak, his progress, but also you've always had that second outstanding inline blocker, whether it's a Mike Ragone or Troy Nicholas shifting over from defense. Who fills that role or capacity?
Durham Smythe, Tyler Luatua. Both those guys, I have a great deal of confidence in Durham Smythe. I'll just give you an example. You know, we have tire wars. Tire wars are, you know, it's a tug of war with a tire. And the cones are about 5 yards apart, and the first guy that pulls that tire 5 yards to the cone wins. Who are you going to match up with Jalen Smith? There's nobody to match up with Jalen Smith. He's 230-something pounds. You can't put a running back against him, right? You can't put a wide receiver against him. You can't put an old lineman because he's 300 pounds. Ben Koyak just had shoulder surgery, so we put Durham Smythe up against Jalen Smith. And we wanted to see what he had. And now he lost to Jalen. But he battled him for 25 seconds. It was a long battle. And we saw a lot in Durham Smythe in that battle, that tire war. And he's a tough kid. He's competitive. He will stick his nose in there. He's got great instincts at the position. He's a heck of a good player. We're lucky to have him. Ben Koyak had a great finish to his summer. And Tyler Luatua is up to about 268 pounds, and he's strong, and we think he's going to help us as well. So we think with those three kids right there, Nick Wisher's, you know, got to get stronger. He's got a great, you know, pass radius. I mean, he can catch balls everywhere, but he's just not that inline blocker yet. But those three guys are going to do a nice job for us.
Is Koyak able to practice?
Yeah, he's full, looks great, did a great job leading that group. But I really think you're going to enjoy watching Durham Smythe play.
Thank you.
Last one, and then we'll end it with you, Brian.
Coach, you talked about a lack of returning production at the receiving corps, but you have some returning depth. Do you have a pecking order of kind of who you're hoping or looking for to step up early on at that position?
Well, I think you start, you know, with the guy that has been consistently the best leader since January is Chris Brown. You know, he had a great bowl game. You know, he probably had his best game of his career against Rutgers in the bowl game. I look for Chris Brown to give us really good production. I look for DeVaris Daniels to give us, you know, great production. I think Corey Robinson is going to be, you know, a really big-time player for us. You know, I think he's had a great summer. He's stronger. He's faster. He's going to give us a lot of production. I think Will Fuller, we're going to utilize him so much more this year. I think he's got elite speed and the ability to catch the football. I think Torrey Hunter, you know, we redshirted him last year. He's looked impressive. So I think we've got, where we may not have an established guy other than maybe, you know, Brown and Daniels, you know, are on that cusp of establishing themselves. We got a lot of depth. We got a lot of guys that are going to get an opportunity to go in there and compete and really allow us the opportunity to get the ball out to a number of guys.
When you have that many guys, how do you as a staff, obviously through the summer and then heading into camp, keep all of those players sort of in sync with your two quarterbacks, depending on who's going to be that guy?
Right. Consistency in what we do offensively is the most important thing. And I think, when you're talking about route running, and you're talking about your timing with your quarterback, if there's a consistency in the staff room with the quarterback coach and the wide receiver coach and how we run things, and you're not just letting guys do their own thing, you can build that consistency with all the receivers. There'll be some little idiosyncrasies that each one of them has, maybe on a fade or, in a short field. But other than that, within the, from the 20 to the 20, you can build that consistency with the whole group.
All right, thank you, everybody. And we'll see some of you on Monday.